Greetings, Diocese of Olympia. Welcome to the second installment of our Being Neighbor to Our Muslim Sisters and Brothers video series. In our first video, Arsalan Bukhari, Director of CARE Washington, suggested that one great way to encourage peace with our Muslim neighbors is to get to know our Muslim neighbors.
But there's nothing better than sitting down with your Muslim neighbor. And so we really encourage people to just walk into a mosque, introduce yourself, say hi, meet your neighbors.
The same day I met with Arsalan, I was also introduced to Aneelah Afzali, an American Muslim woman who has quite a story. She is warm, friendly, intelligent, and passionate about promoting unity among people of all faiths. In our continuing efforts to promote peace and understanding, and to be the peacemakers that Jesus spoke so often in his life and teaching, I'd like to share my recent discussion with Aneela so that you can get to know her as well. Thank you for being here, first of all.
Absolutely.
And I just wondered if you'd tell us a little bit about your background.
Yes, thank you for having me here. Yeah. And I'll actually start by saying Assalamu alaikum, which is the traditional Muslim greeting. And I actually recently learned that Jesus, peace be upon him, himself would actually greet with that same greeting. So that's a nice commonality that we have.
Absolutely.
Yes. So I am an American. I am a Muslim. I am a U.S. citizen. I am a registered voter. I work and volunteer in the community. I'm pretty passionate and outspoken. I was actually born in Kabul, Afghanistan.
Okay.
My family left when I was 2 years old to escape the Soviet invasion. We lived for 3 years in Germany and then came over to the U.S. Because my dad's side of the family was living in California. We were there for 5 years and then 6 years in Portland, Oregon. And then I went off to college at the University of Oregon. I am a proud duck. After college, I continued on to get my law degree from Harvard Law School. I came to Seattle after that and worked at the international law firm for 3 years of Heller Ehrman. And then I continued on to Stokes Lawrence, a mid-sized law firm, where I was fortunate to be able to make a partner there. And then one of my clients, actually a healthcare IT company, hired me to join them and become their general counsel to lead their legal team there. So after some time there, basically 10 years in the legal field, I decided that it's time for me to take a break. And right now I'm learning, sharing, and growing in my faith. So it's been a wonderful process. I'm humbled by God's blessings, and I love my family. My mom and dad worked really hard to provide for us. They even opened 3 family businesses. And they raised us to be proud Americans, productive citizens, and people who contribute back to society. In my family, we have a doctor, a software engineer, a realtor, a kindergarten teacher, and a sales representative. And our story is similar to millions of Americans across the country who share the similar values of family, of working hard. American Muslims share the traditional American values of success and how to achieve that by working hard. And we deserve the same opportunities as all Americans do. We believe in the same political values that all Americans believe in as they're entrenched in the U.S. Constitution.
Including the diversity of those.
Absolutely.
Across the political spectrum.
Absolutely.
And what does Islam teach about education for women?
The pursuit of knowledge is an obligation on every single Muslim, man or woman. The Quran actually exhorts us to think, reflect, learn. The 2009 Gallup poll actually showed that American Muslims are the second most educated religious community in the U.S. And in fact, the right of women to pursue education was one of the rights that Islam granted to women over 1,400 years ago, along with the rights to own property, inherit property, the right to divorce.
A little bit ahead of us.
Just a little bit.
A little bit. Were you always interested in the practice of law?
I grew up having a very strong interest in the legal justice system. I remember my dad getting a speeding ticket one time, and he told me that he thought it was on the basis of race. So I insisted that we go to the courtroom, and I stood up there to try to speak on his behalf. And when the judge asked me, "Are you a lawyer?" and I said no, he told me to sit back down. So that pushed me to
I'm going to go be a lawyer.
Exactly, right? It pushed me to want to pursue education. I never actually imagined that I would get to go to law school because given my background socially, economically, culturally, I didn't think even college, even that seemed a hard enough challenge. But God is great, and I was blessed to be able to not only get my college degree, but also go to law school at Harvard Law School.
Yeah, an amazing thing. Harvard, an attorney, IT company, and then you've kind of shifted gears a little bit. You've changed. Tell us about that.
I reached a point where I realized I had been given every blessing I could ask for from God. I was, culturally Muslim. I wasn't really a practicing Muslim. And it was that same time that I read the Quran for the first time, cover to cover. The message just shook me. After that, I told myself, you know what, I dedicated so much of my life to pursuing my education, my legal career, and everything else. I really needed to take a little bit of time to dedicate to exploring my faith and understanding that. I've learned, for example, that Islam and American legal system actually go hand in hand. It's actually no wonder then that the U.S. Supreme Court in 1935 honored Prophet Muhammad as one of the 18 greatest lawgivers in human history.
So it's interesting you bring this up because, you know, in light of the fact that we have political candidates that will go unnamed that are running around saying things such as a Muslim would be an unconstitutional person to be the President of the United States, for instance. I mean, what do you think or feel when you hear that?
I feel like it's rubbish.
Yeah.
It's really unfortunate that we have an environment that people have such misunderstanding of Islam. People seem to want to accept what they believe rather than reality oftentimes. American Muslims value and cherish the same things as other Americans. The sense of justice in Islam is so strong, so very strong, that a quote from the Quran is actually posted at Harvard Law School. This is the stand up for justice, even if it's against your own self, or your parents, or your kin, or rich or poor, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So when I hear things like this, I just brush it off.
Yeah.
You can't believe this kind of stuff. But I do think it's imperative on us, Muslims as well as Christians and other allies, to really speak up and counter these notions or these misrepresentations about what Islam is or what Muslims are or what they believe.
When you studied the message of Islam and you became even more deeply called to it, is it a message you can put into a few words, or what would you say that message is?
If you really had to shorten it, would be to serve God by serving creation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's essentially the same teaching that came to us through Christianity with Jesus, peace be upon him, and all the prior prophets.
Yeah, and Jesus and Mary are, I mean, they're taught in the Quran, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah, mentioned and revered too.
Absolutely,
yeah, absolutely.
yes.
And people either don't want to hear this or don't know this many times. That
Yes. We all worship one God. We believe in the same prophets, from Adam to Abraham to Noah to Moses and David. We have so many similarities in terms of our moral values, things like service, like love, compassion, kindness. So there really is a lot more in common that we have than differences.
So what's next for you?
Hoping to learn Arabic, which is the language in which the Quran was revealed. I'm also in the process of moving to another state to care for my parents. And then I'm also volunteering in the community. Organizations like Hope Place, which is a part of Union Gospel Mission. Of course, CARE as well, working with them a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm doing some other projects on my own to try to better improve Christian-Muslim dialogue and relations between Muslims and non-Muslims.
Yeah, and that leads well into the question, how can Christians be allies to their Muslim neighbors?
So the best way that everyday Christians can support their Muslim friends and allies is to learn more about Islam.
Yeah.
And then to be able to talk to your Muslim coworker, neighbor, friend, whoever you may know that is Muslim, talk to them and learn about them. Yeah. And then vocally share that message about the contributions of Muslim Americans with the rest of the world in a public forum, through op-eds, through letters to the editor, through events and conventions and things like that. I kind of summarize these 4 steps in US, U.S., but 2 U's and 2 S's. So understand and unite, and then share and serve. So for the understanding bit, of course, we need to understand to be able to overcome the fear. Once we realize our commonalities, at that point we can unite. You and I, Bishop, we actually have more in common with each other than we do with most fringe elements of each of our faith communities.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So once we have that understanding and the uniting, then we can go to sharing, and that is sharing the message, sharing it loudly, proudly, vocally. The final piece of that being the S, which is service. And that is something that is taught in both of our faiths. And we need to stand up against Islamophobia and its ugly cousins of any form. And we need to really be able to give back to society.
Now, the mosque in Redmond, I believe I was there when that was dedicated. And what I remember about learning there was that it was designed in many, many ways to teach about Islam.
Absolutely.
Can you tell us more about that? And,
Yes.
and what kind of things happen there? And could Christians come there and learn?
Christians are always welcome to come there in that mosque or in any other mosque for that matter. The Muslim Association of Puget Sound, MAPS, is a great community that is open to everybody.
Yeah.
And we also have classes there, and I'm actually involved in one of the classes at MAPS, and that is a class on the Bible through a Muslim lens.
Oh.
So it's a fascinating class, and it's a great opportunity for Muslims and Christians to come together. And the environment that we create in that class is another perfect model for the rest of society.
And Christians come? Do they
Christians
come?
do come, yes.
Good, good.
Yes, I actually
That's
learn
good.
a lot from our Christian friends,
Yeah.
and they learn a lot
Great.
from us, so it's sharing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a great opportunity, and I welcome anybody who wants to do that class or any other class to engage in these kinds of interfaith dialogues, because you'll realize how common we are as human
Yeah.
beings.
The invitation to come to a mosque. What happens? You walk in the door, what should they do?
Well, I mean, they can look at the website to get some
Yeah.
background information, and places like MAPS do have some information for visitors. They can go on their own. I know Christians who have walked into MAPS on their own.
Mm-hmm.
They've been welcomed. They can reach out to CARE. If nothing else, I'm happy to go with anybody who wants to go to MAPS.
Would they be invited to prayer?
We actually have a lot of Christians who join us in prayer,
Yeah,
like from
yeah.
our Bible through a Muslim lens class. It's a beautiful experience for them.
Yeah.
And as they've learned what the prayer means, they actually agree with the message.
So even greeting a Muslim woman on the street, in the neighborhood where I walk, I see a lot of people ignore them. I truly believe sometimes it's just a not knowing enough of how to make this connection is
Yes.
part of our problem sometimes.
Absolutely. And that's why one of our first elements that I was talking about is understanding and uniting. Because
Yeah.
once we get the understanding of what do you do, how do you greet someone, what is allowed, what is not, all of those things.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like I said, American Muslims are like all other Americans.
How is CARE helpful?
CARE is actually a pretty unique organization, at least here in the Northwest. It is the civil rights organization for American Muslims. The CARE Seattle office with our salon is actually a multifunctional kind of organization. CARE can connect you
Yeah.
to American Muslims in the community who can help you with whatever. You need a speaker for an event? Contact CARE. You want to write an article about Muslim Americans? Contact CARE.
Try to be totally honest. How did it feel to walk in here today into the Episcopal headquarters, Christianity? You know, were you worried about that at all?
I wasn't worried about walking into here. I
Okay, I
actually
get it.
really enjoy walking into churches. It's really nice to see people who are similarly believing in God. I am just honestly honored to have this opportunity to speak to you, Bishop, and that for you to be willing to take your time to reach across and get to know Muslim Americans.
I just want to hear your response, because I think if I said to a lot of Christians, go walk into a mosque, go visit a mosque, that would be maybe a more daunting thing, you know, and that's what we have to turn around, I think. What somebody watching this saying, you know, yeah, I really need to do more to understand. What's one of the first things they could do?
Learn about Islam and their Muslim neighbors or coworkers or
Yeah.
friends. There's so many misunderstandings about Islam. Or read the Quran and learn about Islam from the source instead of relying on the media to give you very negative perceptions.
Have you personally been discriminated against because of your faith?
I've definitely experienced fear, people looking at me strangely, but fortunately, I don't know if it's the Northwest or if it's my own attitude and the way I interact with people, that puts people at ease.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming and being part of this and for taking the time to do it too.
Absolutely, I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
I hope what comes out of this video for Episcopalians in Western Washington, for Christians, is that we do more of that. We have many more conversations, and more than anything else, to build relationships and get to know one another, to live out that call we have in the Bible and from Jesus to love our neighbors. This is just part of that.